realize it's been a minute since I've made a journal on the channel, a junk journal more specifically. So I think it's high time we break that hiatus. And I welcome you to join me on our latest journal making journey, where we will be making what I have decided to call NITA'S journal. Welcome back to Livie's Lovelies, your inspirational craft channel. And I'm your host, Fam the Fabulous. All right, so listen, we're going to do a real quick, brief overview of what I have done, what I'm doing in order to create this sister's journal. Okay, this was a request made a while back, and I'm just now fulfilling it. Now listen, because this Amazon packaging is all but in the shape and size that I need it to be, the only thing I really have to do, and this is the same for cereal boxes. Now I will tell you that cereal boxes are not as thick because of the corrugation as this the Amazon packaging, the box. However, if you double it up, if you have enough, you can double them up. It just takes a little bit more work, but use what you have. If all you've got is your kids' cereal box, save them up, cut them down, and then move them off to the side so you can store them easily, and you can use them at the appointed time. Now listen, the first thing that I do is I make sure I have an idea of the size that I want. So at this point, this is already, let me see, roughly 6 1/4 inches, right? So we're going to start there. Now I don't want my spine this wide, which is the only reason I'm cutting this apart. If this was merely, if this inner part was 2 inches, then I would leave it as it is and I would just cover this. I would cut it down so that it's shorter, and then I would, I would move along. However, that is not what we're working with. So we've got to do what we've got to do. Now, one of the first things I want to do is I want to make sure that I am marking this so that I'll do that once I have this cut in half or cut apart. So I'm just going to take this. You can use whatever method you have to cut it. Don't worry about if it bends. It'll be covered till within an inch of its life. One side down, one to go. And for projects like this where I'm deconstructing things, I don't use my good scissors. I use these old, dirty, they're not really sharp, but we don't need them to be super sharp. That's what the good scissors are for. Good paper and fabric. I actually have a set of scissors for my fabric exclusively. All right, so now that we have that, now let's just determine the size that we want. I've already got a journal partially finished off to the side, so once we move a little further, I'll pull that out so you can see where I'm at with things. All right, so the average piece of paper is 8.5 by 11, right? So it'd be 8.5 by 11, or 8.5 by 11. But if you turn that around, you've got 11 on each side. If you fold it in half, that's 8.5. Most printables, most copy paper is going to be 8.5 inches tall. So what we want to do is we want to make it easier on ourselves and just go to 9 inches. Okay? Because if I don't have to cut things down, that's even better for me. Also, you may be using laces and tucks, so you want to just leave a little allowance for that as well. And your papers do not have to be, we're going to cut this here because it is actually not even at the bottom. So I have to cut the portion of the bottom off. Which is probably what I should be doing right now. All right, so make that 9. But yeah, give yourself a little room for error. Your pages may be large. You may have some lace on them. Tabs may be poking out. So a little bit larger is the way to go. And then last but not least, this. I'm going to just make sure I have everything lined up. That does not look right. Why does one look like it's right and the other one doesn't? Huh. Could be just me. Yeah, it's just me. All right, so then you just cut these. Could have drew the line. You draw the line first, people. Make sure that you're cutting in a straight line. I mean, if it's important to you. Now remember, you will be covering this, so you do have the ability to kind of make it straight once you fold the paper over. You'll see what I'm talking about shortly. Just follow along. Pay attention as if you were in school. I'm going to do this the same for this. So now what we have is we have the front, we have the back, we have the cover, we have the back, and we have the spine. Now you'll have a couple more pieces left over. And I will tell you now, do not throw those away. Leave them off to the side because you'll see in just a moment what I do with them. They become a part of the cover. I mean, you don't have to save scraps like this, but I do have this on here for just a second. All right, so moving on to the next piece. Okay. So you want to make sure that everything is pretty much the size it needs to be. And it looks like this might need to be cut a little bit. Looks like it's a little off. Not a big problem, but sometimes if it's a little off, or depending on the angle that you may have set it in on the page, it may not line up the way you want it to. So keep a watchful eye for that. All right, we're looking good. We're looking good. All right, now that we have that, we want to make sure that everything is the right height. Now this is off. As you can see, it's slightly off. But what you'll do is you'll make sure you have it just the way you need it. Cut it down, make sure it's even and equal. We're using packaging, people. I mean, if we're not going to spend the money to get MDF board, let us take the necessary precaution to ensure that that in which we're recycling is measuring up, right? Okay, so moving on to the next step. Okay, so once we're at the step where we have everything lined up, everything is equal and even, although mine is not, but that's neither here nor there. The next thing we want to do is we want to make sure we have some packaging, okay? Brown paper packaging, some type of paper that will be used to cover it. Now, that could be gift wrap. We want something sturdy but flexible. Once we bring the glue in, we will have ourselves a more perfect union, if you will. The glue does makes your paper more flexible while you're working with it. And then once it dries, if you're using, good wet glue, once it dries, it makes it more sturdy. So the next step you would use, and this is the Amazon packaging, but my label with my address is on the other side, so I'm not flipping it over. Although I typically would. Because this has a little bit of a shine to it, and I'm not sure if, if that's going to interfere. But it doesn't really matter, because the next step is going to be where we take our pieces. So here's the thing. When it's time to lay these pieces down, you're going to get your glue. Okay. Now, I don't leave it as it is. I will take a spatula of some sort, something like this or this, and I kind of spread it out so that it's smooth. Now, it doesn't have to cover the entire area, but you do want to make sure that it holds, right? Once you have that down, you can put it down. But here's the thing. Before you start setting it, make sure you have at least an inch, an inch to 2 inches all around your your journal space. Okay? In which case I do. Maybe off, may have a little less here and a little more there. It doesn't matter. As long as you can fold and it sit and hold with the glue. Now, once you lay down that first piece, everything else is going to depend on that. So as soon as you set it down, you take the next piece, put your glue on that. Okay, put your glue on that, spread it, lay that down, and you can use this. You can use the scrap pieces of your cardboard. But what you want to do is you want to make sure that while this is set, and you still have time to move this around a little bit because that glue is wet, you put your cardboard in between, and this is all the space that you're going to need. Okay, you don't want more, you don't want less. Just trust me on that. And as you can see, this little gap here is what you end up with. If you have more, your cover is going to be flimsy. If you have less, it makes it very difficult for it to close properly. So this is pretty much the perfect size, which is about 2 millimeters, 2 or 3 millimeters. Don't quote me on that. Figure that out yourselves. But you see how thick it is. Okay. All right. And so then you do the same thing with this one. Once all of that is dry, you'll then take your glue. Now, this is me. This is what I do. I take the glue and I hit the corners first. Okay. I give a little bit of glue here, lay that corner down, and I do the opposite side, lay that corner down. And I give it a second. And then I go do the opposite corners. Once all the corners are laid down, and the reason why I'm not doing this right now is because just trust me, it doesn't need to be done on this channel. I will have a link down in the description box to the playlist where you can have a little bit more in depth, because we're going to move on to where the real meat and potatoes is of this video, okay? And we're not going to do it all in one sitting. We are just taking our time, and I'm bringing you along on the journey while I make the next commissioned journal, okay? Now, once you have all of these down, okay, then you will glue the top, roll that down, let it dry for a second, give it a couple seconds. You'll do the opposite side. Don't do the top and then do a side. Do the top and do the bottom. Always go do the opposites. And then once those are pretty much drying, give it a couple minutes, then do the opposite end. Once you have that there, and which is where I'm at right now, you will want to start to consider the fabric that you're going to use. Now, I had already decided that I wanted to use some of the fabrics that I picked up earlier last year. So I picked out that. I picked out this. And I found this. Now, I've already cut into these fabrics doing other things, these two, on other projects. And the only one I haven't used is this one. So I'm going to use this fabric to cover. I've already done the journal anyways, at least the cover part of it. And then this part will be used as throughout the journal, this remnant I have here. And then I will take care of the inside with this if I'm going to back the inside with fabric. Now let's get on to where I'm at right now. Before I cover it with fabric, because I don't really like for it to be solely hard cardboard, that's not what I want. If I'm covering it with fabric, I do like for it to have a little bit of cushion, just a little bit, not a whole lot. I then cover it with felt. Now you can use felt, you can use a t-shirt, you can use whatever you want to, but you just want to have a little bit of cushion underneath your fabric so as to not have the glue coming through your fabric as you glue your fabric in place. Just trust me on this, because we don't need a whole lot of glue once we're covering that journal. So I use the felt. I had enough felt for the front cover, the back, and the spine. It was one large piece. But whatever fabric you have that provides a little bit of cushion, like I said, an old t-shirt, maybe even a very thin towel, tea towel or something like that, use what you have, okay? And that leads us to where we are now. So I've already, as you can see, I've cut that cardboard down. I've got the spine. As you can see, the spacing here is, as I said, okay, that's all you need. I've got some corners that I didn't want, I just did a little different. So there you have the packaging there. So it's covered with packaging. And then underneath, if you can see there's a little bit of give there. It's a little thicker. Is the felt. And once I laid the felt down, I glued that down really well. Okay. What that enabled me to do was not have to glue my fabric to the front. I cut the fabric out, the same size as the paper that I used for the packaging. It was about 1 inch larger. Okay. Then I glued the top, glued the bottom. Or I glued the edges first, and then I glued the top, glued the bottom, glued the sides. Now, I want to make sure that this definitely does not give way, but I already knew that I was going to use my sewing machine to stitch around it, which was why I was perfectly comfortable not having the fabric glued to the actual cover, because I knew that I was going to run stitches around it. Now, I mentioned to not throw away your scraps, because you're going to have scrap fabric. You're going to have some fabric that corresponds and correlates with it, in which case I did. And using one of the scrap pieces, I just backed a piece of cardboard, and it's going to serve maybe as a pocket on the outside, or as a cover plate, you know, something that adds a little bit more depth and interest to the cover. So I'm not sure exactly what I will be doing with it. I will be doing something. But yeah, that's just another way to use up what you have. So listen, I hope this has inspired you, and I hope that you will come back as we continue on creating. Now, the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to start pulling papers to start the signatures. And in that video, I will go ahead and consider the interior. Now, I will tell you this. One thing that I am, at this stage of journal making, sometimes, depending on who the recipient is, I am simply going to cover the inside and pop a couple pockets on it. But if it's someone who I think has additional usages for a journal, you know, maybe it's going to be used as a business planner or something like that, then I may end up adding some type of folio or additional elements in here to house other things. So it really depends on who I am creating for. And in this case, this person really just wants a journal. She just said, you know, make it as, you know, close to regular journal as possible. But the fact that she's asking me to make it means she wants me to add some of my artistic flair in here, which I have no problem with. And of course, I'm going to give her that and a little bit more because she is family. Anyways, so that being said, I'm already enjoying this, and I'm looking forward to you know, challenging myself to not go too far with it, but keep it, you know, relatively within the confines of the request. So listen, if you're still here and you enjoyed this video, this is a wonderful time for you to tell me by hitting the thumbs up button. And for those who are returning subscribers, thank you so much for continuing to show the channel love and support, for sharing me in your creative spaces. Now, if you like this content and you want to get a little bit more of the behind the scenes action that happens in the Lovely Lab, a little bit more about me, the artist, the creative behind this brand, this this community, the face, if you will, of Livie's Lovely, then you might want to check out our Patreon channel. There is exclusive videos, lives exclusively for the community, monthly digitals or monthly freebies, and a whole host of other things. But every video that you see here on YouTube has already aired there first, in addition to whatever exclusive that have been offered for that month. So if you like what you see here, head over. There's a link down in the description box. I hope to see you guys over there. And that's just, again, another way to support this creative community. That being said, guys, listen, until we're back here together on Patreon first and YouTube second, stay encouraged, stay blessed, stay creative and crafting. Bye for now. If you enjoyed this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. Hit subscribe to join the crafty community and be sure to click the bell for notifications of new uploads. Thank you so much for watching. Now stay tuned for more from Livie's Lovelies, your inspirational craft channel. Bye for now.